Chapter 1, Section 3 goes over order of operations and problem solving. The first thing I want to talk about with you guys is how you use order of operations to solve and simplify problems. So you have probably heard the expression PEMDAS. So this is kind of an acronym that we can use to help us remember the order that we solve a problem in. So P stands for parentheses, but that can also include any other type of grouping symbols that you might see in a problem. E would be exponents, and square roots are included in that as well. MD is for multiplication and division, and that goes in order from left to right. And then addition and subtraction also goes in order from left to right. And what I mean by that is when you get to the steps where you have to start multiplying and adding and subtracting and dividing, you read the problem from left to right, and whichever one you see first happens. So when you're in the multiplication and division, if division happens to come before multiplication does, you do the division first and then you follow through with the multiplication. The same thing happens with addition and subtraction. Whichever one comes first is what you need to evaluate first. So for this first example, it wants you to solve this problem using the distributive property and using the order of operations, just to see the different ways that you can solve a problem and how their answers may or may not be affected by the problem. So I'm going to start first by using the distributive property. So the distributive property is when you take the number on the outside and you multiply to the numbers on the inside. So you're taking 3 times 2 and then 3 times 3. So you're going to have 6 plus 9, which is equal to 15. Now, if we do order of operations, and I'm going to abbreviate that, so O of O is for order of operations. This would say that we have to add the 2 and the 3 first because they're inside of parentheses. So that would be 5. So then we have 3 times 5, which would be 15. So while we got the same answer, the order of operations method does take a little bit less time just because we were able to simplify and make this a much smaller problem before we had to distribute. But really either way would be acceptable when you were trying to solve a problem on your own. Going on to the next one here. I'm going to start first by simplifying the piece at the end in the parentheses. So I have 4 squared minus 5, this is being times 2, divided by 10. Next would be the exponent, so 16 minus 5 times 2 divided by 10. So now multiplication and division comes next, so I see that 5 times 2, which would be 10, and then divided by 10. 10 divided by 10 is going to be 1, so we have 16 minus 1, so final answer is 15. Going on to number 3, we've got these brackets over here on the far right side, so we need to start with this first. So we're going to have 5 times the square root of 16 minus 5 plus, inside these brackets you need to take 3 times 2, which would be 6. So we have 15 minus 6 over here. So let's simplify that. So we have 5 times the square root of 16 minus 5 plus 9. Next would be to do the square root because that falls underneath the exponents. So we have 5 times 4 minus 5 plus 9. 5 times 4 would come next because that's multiplication, so 20 minus 5 plus 9. Bringing it up here, 20 minus 5 is going to be 15. Add 9, and we get 24. So if you want to give this next one a shot, I would pause the video, and when you're ready to check your answer, come back and I will work through this one. So the first thing that we're going to want to do here is take care of underneath the square root. So we have this 3.2 squared, and 21 minus 5 is going to be 16. And then we have times 2 on the outside. 3.2 squared is going to be 10.24 plus 4 times 2. So we're going to have 10.24 plus 8. So our answer is going to be 18.24. Going on to the next area in our section here is talking about how to evaluate a formula. So a formula or formulas would be procedures that have been used very often, very frequently to solve certain types of problems, and we are just able to use them over and over and over again in order to help us solve problems. Within formulas, especially when you're dealing with like geometric shapes like polygons, which would be a plane or a flat closed figure, we have a lot of different formulas to help us find like perimeter, area, and volume and those kind of things. So just some basic pieces about polygons that you should hopefully be familiar with from your geometry days. The base of any polygon is the horizontal side. The adjacent side is the side that has an endpoint in common with the base. A parallelogram would be a four-sided figure with opposite sides that are parallel. A rectangle is a type of parallelogram that has 4 right angles, and a square is a type of rectangle that has all sides of equal length. Perimeter would be the total length of the side of a polygon. So I'm going to get into some general formulas for different shapes, talking with both perimeter, and we will get into area as well. So we're going to start first for perimeter. So for a parallelogram, to find perimeter, you would take 2 times the base plus 2 times the side, or you could take 2 times the base plus the side. For a rectangle, very similar, we have the length and the width, so 2 times length plus 2 times width, or 2 times length plus width. For a square, since all the sides are the same, a really simple formula that you can do is to take 4 times the length of a side, so S. So let's do some examples. First one wants us to find the perimeter of a parallelogram that has a base of 16 inches and an adjacent side of 8 inches. So I'm going to take 2 times 16 plus 8, and you could use the other formula if you want, you're going to get the same answer. So this becomes 2 times 24, which ends up being 48 inches. Perimeter is just labeled with the unit that they give you in the problem, nothing fancy. Number 2, a shop that makes custom picture frames has an order for a frame that has outside measurements of 42 by 30. How many inches of picture frame molding are needed for the job? So we're going to take 2 times 42 plus 30. So we're just finding the area or the perimeter that goes around the shape. So we have 2 times 72, which is going to be 144 inches. Now, if we look at this next one, it says that a chain link fence is to be installed around a yard that measures 25 meters by 30 meters. A gate that is 3 meters wide is going to be installed over the driveway. The gate comes pre-assembled from the manufacturer. So how much fencing does the installer need to put up the fence? So let's first start by finding the perimeter. So we're going to take 2 times the length plus the width, so 25 plus the 30. So we're going to have 2 times 55, which is going to be 110. Now, since there's going to be a gate, we want to subtract that from the perimeter, because if we went all the way around, we would basically be just closing up this entire area. So we're going to subtract that 3 for the 3-meter gate, and so we need 107 meters of fencing. Next problem here says how much aluminum edge molding is needed to surround a stainless steel kitchen sink that measures 40 centimeters on each side. So if it measures 40 centimeters on each side, that probably is telling you that it's a square. So we can take 4 times 40, which is going to be 160, and that would be centimeters. Okay, moving on to area. Area is the amount of surface that a polygon would cover. So like carpet would cover an entire floor, not just the outside. Perimeter is just what you would need to go around the space. Area is what you need to cover the entire space. So some general formulas for area. For a rectangle, area is equal to length times width. Square, area is going to be side squared. And for a parallelogram, you're going to take the base times the height. So a carpet installer is carpeting a room that measures 16 feet by 20 feet. Projecting out from one wall is a fireplace that measures 3 feet by 6 feet. How many square feet of the carpet does the installer need for the job, and how much is going to be wasted? So I'm going to find area of the room first. So we're going to take that 20 times 16, and so that leaves us with 320, and this would be feet squared. And then the area of the hearth of that fireplace, you're going to take 3 times 6, which is going to be 18 feet squared. And so this is going to be the amount of carpet that he needs. This is going to be the amount of waste that he has. Asphalt roofing shingles are sold in bundles. The number of bundles needed to cover a square, 100 feet squared, depends on an overlap when the shingles are installed. If the overlap allows 4 inches of each shingle to be exposed, then 4 bundles are needed per square. With a 5-inch exposure, 3.2 bundles are needed per square. Figure the number of bundles for a 4-inch exposure and for a 5-inch exposure for a roof measuring 30 feet by 20 feet. So the first thing I'm going to do is find the area of my roof. So we're going to take 30 times 20, and that's going to be 600 feet squared. Okay, so the number of bundles, like a bundle is going to cover 100 feet squared. So I'm going to take that 600 feet squared and divide by the 100 feet squared. So this gives me 6 squares from that bundle. So then if the overlap allows 4 inch of each shingle to be exposed and 4 bundles are needed per square, to figure out how many bundles we need, we're going to take 6 times the 4, which would be 24 bundles. But then we also have, for a 5-inch exposure, we have 3.2 bundles are needed. So if we take 6 times 3.2, that's going to be about 19.2, or we would probably want to round up to 20 bundles. So depending on which overlap this roof has, you would need either 24 bundles or 20 bundles. Now some shapes when we're talking about area require us to use the height, and the height would be the perpendicular distance between the 2 parallel sides, and it's also known as the altitude. So it needs to be a side that is going straight up and down. So to find the area of a parallelogram that has a base of 16, an adjacent side of 8, and a height of 6, you actually want to, a height of 7, you want to use the base and you want to use the height. So we're going to take 16 times 7, which is 112 inches squared.